Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, and as always, on behalf of myself and my co-host, Dr. Eugene Zamperone, naturopathic physician, we are always wishing you the best of health and wellness for yourself and your family. We have been doing radio shows and writing books on this topic since I guess about 1980 is when we started some of our radio shows, which now I know I'm a little confused, but maybe you know more than me about what's the difference between a radio show and a podcast, but ours are both. So many of our radio shows that actually people can hear as they drive along in their car or listen in their radio also are podcasts, both simulcast at the same time and then also archived. And we do have an archive of all our podcast shows from here in terms of Progressive Radio Network. So lots of ways to tune in. And we have many, many on-ground classes. If you go to naturalnurse.com, or Facebook, The Natural Nurse. But if you go to naturalnurse.com, that's where we have all our events listed. So coming up right now, and you can join us live, and if you are a health professional, you can get 3 CE credits for any of these courses for massage therapy, dietitians, nurses, midwives, acupuncturists. You can just join in for your own knowledge if you do not have one of those degrees. And here are some of the up-and-coming classes. One is called Herbal Manufacturing, Legal Consideration. This is a huge class. We have lots of people attending. You can still join in. Very cost effective. And in terms of herbal manufacturing, legal considerations, let's say you're a budding herbalist and you make some extracts, teas, or a nice little salve, and boy, you love using it. You know it's so much better than any commercial thing with all kinds of chemicals in it. So you start sharing it with your friends and neighbors, and they love it, and your family. And before you know it, you go, wow, you know what? I could make this and just sell it, myself right now on Amazon or on Etsy, which of course is a craft site, and that'll be fine. Well, I'm sorry to tell you that I actually work, since I do regulatory in the natural products industry, with many, many clients who are private people who did just that. And they have been gone after by the FDA, and their entire life is threatened. I have to tell you, not that they're going to murder you, but they really can come in, take your computer, make your life miserable, cost you every single penny you ever made in your life, and you have to sell your house. I mean, it's not fun. So much, much, much better to please take this class, Herbal Manufacturing Legal Considerations, or study with someone else and find out the rules before you offer, before you prepare and sell an herbal product or some other natural product, before you make a label. It doesn't matter how beautiful the label is, but it does matter if it's within legal compliance. And unless you know what you're doing, I can almost assure you it is not. And even the packaging, it's a big process. Much better to think about it beforehand. If you want to continue making things and giving them away to your friends and your family, please go right ahead. That's called crafts. The minute you start selling them, we're moving into FDA regulation and legal considerations. So I highly suggest you to join us for Herbal Manufacturing Legal Considerations. That's coming right up. We also have a beautiful on-ground class where we meet together called Hildegard of Bingen, Mystic, Psychic, and Visionary. Hildegard was an amazing person. She was a Benedictine nun and a master herbalist, and was also the founder of Scientific Natural History in Germany. She worked both through studies and mystical visions and psychic impressions and observations of nature. Actually, a fascinating person, and we're giving an on-ground lecture about her coming up at the American Holistic Nurses Association, and that's going to be in Fort Lauderdale. We then have an online class that's free. And that's really rare. So I suggest you jump on board for that because it is free to sign up. It's called Hemp, THC, CBD, Cannabis, Endocannabinoids. What's all the buzz? And that's coming up free and open to all. It does have 2 CE units for RDs, registered dietitians, which all our other classes have as well. But you don't have to be a registered dietitian to take the class. And as you know, hemp is taking the world by storm with a dizzying variety of products and claims. Find out what's true and what's hype. And so join me. It's coming up in about a week. You can sign up now. Just go to naturalnurse.com and look through the calendar. And this one is free, which they're not all free, but that one is. Then we have another excellent class coming up online called Career Paths in Natural Health. Career counseling with the natural nurse. Let's say you love natural, and you know what? I know every one of you do, or you wouldn't be listening to our show, The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z, because the whole thing is natural. So obviously you have an interest in that. That's why you're joining us, and thank you for joining us. And perhaps you'd like to make your professional life within the realm of natural. There are so many opportunities. People don't know. Almost every single person who has taken this class, this is a general open class, and then sometimes people move through and take a more individualized one, wind up getting a job in natural. It might be in healthcare if you're a healthcare provider, but it also could be as a graphic design artist, but you wind up working for a natural manufacturer. You're making just as much money or more, but the conversation all day is about natural. You're making labels with plants instead of labels with toxic chemicals if you're working for someone else. So it's really a great opportunity. And that class online is Career Paths in Natural Health, coming right up. After that, we're doing an on-ground class, Explore Edible and Medicinal Wild Plants of Florida. And that's an on-ground class, and that's going to be in Clearwater, Florida. So you can join us for that. And one of our most exciting and well-attended classes is coming up, and that is called which grants 18 CEU courses. It is called the Natural Nurse Herbal Certification Course, and that's starting in early March. It's once a month for 4 months, and from it you get 18 CEUs, which is quite a bit for all of those professionals. If you're not a professional, you still definitely can take the course. And if you're thinking about becoming an RH, that's a registered herbalist, this course can be used towards your RH. That's another thing I do every day, is work with individuals who do want to be a registered herbalist. That's called an RH, and take them through the entire process about all the things that are needed to send in to apply for your RH. And my Natural Nurse Herbal Certification course could be one of those courses that is fully acceptable towards your RH. It does not complete it, but all those credits can be used towards it. So there's an amazing array of offerings there. Just go to naturalnurse.com and see what turns you on, where you'd like to go with your life. In what way could we interact, and in what way could we work together to bring your life in balance and into a natural perspective. Today, we have as our guest, and we're happy to have as our guest, Dr. Ken Druck. And we're going to be talking about his new book, Raising an Aging Parent, Guidelines for Families in the Second Half of Life. And Dr. Druck holds a PhD in clinical psychology from the Fielding Institute and also studied at Hofstra University. But in addition, he's an eclectic individual who is a rock drummer, and he's jammed with many bands, including the Blue Oyster Cult, as well as being a lifelong athlete who played soccer on the U.S. team in the Senior Olympics and was named All New England in basketball and soccer in high school. Dr. Druck was also known as Dr. Ken, because he is Dr. Ken Druck, on Oprah before there was a Dr. Phil. Among his many accomplishments, he shares priceless information with the sandwich generation, who we're going to identify, in his book, Raising an Aging Parent. And you can find out more at kendruck.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Druck.
Good to be with you, Ellen.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit and talk about, you have a very, very interesting past.
You know, I think all of us look for things that we're good at, especially if we're struggling with things that we're supposed to be good at. I was supposed to be good in school, and as with many people, I discovered that my way of learning and my way of reflecting back my understanding of the world didn't match up very well with the schools. And these are the schools many years ago. And so I was, and at the time they would not diagnose kids with learning disabilities or attention deficit issues, but that is what I struggled with. But what I was very good at was sports. And needless to say, my attention migrated to what I was good at. And while I continued to struggle with school, but it worked out beautifully. Some of us gain our confidence from the work we do in the arts, from the work we do mechanically. I mean, who knows what it is that we discover we know a great deal about, or we have an intuitive sense of. And that was it for me. It was sports. I loved flying through space, and my body and my muscles coordinated in such a way that I was good at it.
And also you were successful, so that's always a good thing.
I was successful, and you're based in the New York area. Well, I went to school in Rockville Center, and as a matter of fact, I just went back to a reunion. I won't tell you which one it was, but met many of my classmates and teammates and had a great reunion in Rockville Center.
That sounds fun. Well, I'm actually a Floridian. I'm in Florida now, but a lot of our shows originate out of the New York area. You know, that's how it is now. It's very interesting that time and space almost don't exist the way they used to.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Who knows where we are? We're in cyberspace.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is really true. Can you tell us about your Oprah adventure?
Well, I was a very determined young man. I had started at the time that women's consciousness raising and the feminist movement was awakening in this country, and women's centers, women's studies programs were going up like fast food restaurants. Books about every element of being a woman were coming out. You know, I was busy thinking about, what about us? What about us guys? You know, basic training as a guy is so limited. You know, you learn to pose and posture and figure things out and fix them. But in terms of being a human being and dealing with all the elements of communicating and being vulnerable and getting close to people, self-awareness, understanding who we were, what lurked in our hearts and souls, and our sexuality, and all those things, I immersed myself in that world of understanding. I started writing about it. I started participating in men's consciousness-raising groups, and I started giving workshops. It wasn't long after that I wrote my first book called The Secrets Men Keep, Breaking the Silence Barrier. And the book became a bestseller in the early 80s, and I was determined to tell the world about everything I was discovering about the influence of our fathers in our lives as men, our relationships with women, starting with our mothers, our relationships, our friendships, and how limited they were, unfortunately, our relationship to work and our health, because many of us had fathers who spent absolutely no time and energy taking care of their bodies and who were dying very young, including my own. So this was a very important subject, and I told friends, I'm going to get on that new show, that Oprah Winfrey show. I'm going to get on that show. And I contacted Oprah and her producers, and with a great idea, apparently, and that was to have an all-male audience. I said, I will not do the show unless there are only men in the audience. And they said, that sounds fantastic. Where are we going to find
really
these
a good
guys?
idea.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be sitting up there as the talking head, let men speak for themselves about how they feel about these things. And men are very open. When we get into a setting where it is safe, we can be very direct and honest about almost any subject, and that's what I had been doing in my workshops. So here I was on Oprah. Oprah calls back and says, "Come on, you're on," and that was the beginning of many appearances on Oprah, and actually working with her and her producers to help them early in their as they began that show to make sure they were doing things that were psychologically responsible and coherent, and they didn't want to turn into a circus. They wanted to keep it really a high integrity program. Anyhow, so there I was.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I actually do agree with you. And even in terms of holistic medicine, when we talk about menopause so often, I actually think andropause, and this is part of course, getting older, particularly with men, is often ignored because men go through similar hormonal changes as women, although it may not be as obvious. And I don't think they get the pass and the credit. Like if women get to gain weight and, act bitchy or whatever, people go, oh, it's just menopause. But men don't get that same pass.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We're not encouraged to get to know our bodies and our cycles, and we are learning more. Thank goodness, over the years, men have become more self-aware. I was writing for something. Rodale Press started something way back in the day called the Men's Health Newsletter, and I used to write articles. It was like, oh my goodness, we're paying attention to our health, and I would write articles, and eventually it grew into Men's Health, as a magazine, and now it's a huge entity. But it's a sign that over the years we have embraced the elements of looking at our health. We understand what we need to do. We're curious. We're self-supporting. We work out, and we're living longer and more robust lives as men. So, thankfully, things have evolved in many, and we also recognize the transitions that we go through over the course of a lifetime, and we're more self-caring, self-compassionate, and self-aware.
Right, and I think that really more needs to be done in terms of raising that level of understanding, particularly with men. So that's wonderful that you're doing that. So what made you write this particular book with this very eclectic and wide background you have as a rock drummer, as a sports person all these years? What made you write this book, Raising an Aging Parent?
Well, Ellen, when we look back across, when somebody gets to the stage of life that I'm in right now, you look back across the landscape of your life and you see the threads that run through all of it. And one of the threads for me, starting with, being a kid with learning disabilities, and I call them learning differences, but, struggling with that was, how do we transform adversity into opportunity, and the opportunity to become the better version of ourselves in any season of life? how do we take the things that are presenting as challenges, and how can we become the resilient, courageous version of ourselves? So the thread that runs through all the seasons of my life is courageous living. How do we live courageously? Maya Angelou used to had a beautiful saying. She said, "Courage is the virtue that is embedded in all the other great virtues." It's courage. How do we summon newfound courage to meet the challenges of the day? And in the season of life that many of us, millions of us, are facing as baby boomers turn 70 and 65 and 75 and 80 and beyond, and their children are watching them get older, how do we face the challenges that are arising there? Because those are millions of people. Millions of us are becoming caregivers to our parents, even if just a little bit. The roles are reversing, and we're taking care of our parents. At the very least, we're watching them get older and deal with the issues that human beings face as they turn a little bit older. Some things wear down and wear out. Some things that made sense in their lives as they were working, and the source of meaning and structure and activity was their job, and now they're retired. How do we deal with the physical, the emotional, the spiritual elements of changing seasons in our lives? And many of our parents, we lose a parent, and then our other parent has to figure out how to live on without their companion, without their buddy, without their husband or wife. So for me, it became a very important conversation to talk about raising an aging parent, raising a parent up. Just as we try to raise our kids, we raise them up. We rise up, and we try to rise them up with us. How do we do that? How do we show up as a good son and a good daughter to an aging parent, and at the same time take care of ourselves? Because the idea isn't to deplete ourselves and burn out, caregiver burnout. The idea is to take care of ourselves, to upgrade our level of self-care as the caregiving needs and time and energy we spend in caregiving increases.
Well, that is a lot. One thing is, I guess it's a surprise for me because I am right in that sandwich generation right now. And all those things just happened to me with my dad passing away just weeks ago. And now my mom being not able to deal with that at all. But one thing is, I don't think that people realize the cost. I mean, just the financial cost, not even the emotional cost involved. For some reason, I thought with very good health insurance and Medicare and all those things that you could get, let's say, aides to come over and be with an aging parent. But you can't unless you pay for it out of pocket.
Yep.
I don't think people are already aware of that.
Yeah, I think it is one of the reasons to open up, and my book is about all the conversations that we need to have that need to take place in families in the second half of life between aging parents and adult children about money, about health care, about where they're living, about their budget, because many parents are outliving what they thought they would need. Many parents are completely taken, and families are taken by surprise at the expense of health care. Isn't that the number one issue that we're fighting for this year in the election? That everybody's standing up and saying we need to get a handle on the skyrocketing healthcare costs and pharmaceutical costs. Everybody should be able to afford it. So I think absolutely we need to educate ourselves about what if mom has are we covered? Do we have health insurance that'll cover this? how can we plan and budget our future in such a way? How can we, in some cases, a family that I'm working with right now, at the last minute, as a father was diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer, at the last minute, the daughter who lived out of town had to come in and get power of attorney because her father is no longer able to really make good decisions on his own behalf. And whether it's Alzheimer's or some illness, how do we make sure that we're set up legally, financially, in terms of our estate? How do we put our houses in order so that we can function and be able to afford the kind of quality of life even if things go south?
Wow, so true. Well, we're going to take just a little break right here, and I want to let our listeners know that you are listening to The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z, and it's right here on Progressive Radio Network. We're talking to author Dr. Ken Druck about one of his books. This one we're talking about today is Raising an Aging Parent, and we're going to take a little break right here. When we come back, we will be continuing our discussion. Be right back with more on The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z.
On this edition of the Natural Medicine Chest, we'll explore the medicinal properties of the plants of the ephedra genera, focusing on the traditional Chinese ephedra, also known as mahuang.
Many species of the plant ephedra are used today in medicine throughout the world. The most medicinal of these are Ephedra sinica, or Chinese mahuang, and Ephedra nevadensis, also known as Mormon tea. Most of the research on ephedra has been performed on mahuang, whose stems and branches have been used as a traditional Chinese medicine for over 5,000 years in the treatment of asthma, hay fever, bronchitis, as well as the common cold.
Ephedra species are erect evergreen shrubs which grow in segmented bamboo-like joints reminiscent of straw ending in thin wisps. They typically are desert plants preferring arid conditions on dry, rocky, and sandy slopes. The Chinese ephedra, mahuang, has earned an impressive reputation as a source of the alkaloid chemical called ephedrine. In the West, scientists became interested in the medicinal usage of mahuang after they isolated ephedrine and pseudoephedrine in 1923. Today, synthetic derivatives have become widely used in prescription and over-the-counter medications. In 1993, over 40 million prescriptions in the U.S. contained these alkaloids.
Ephedra and its relatives are considered to act pharmacologically as sympathomimetic compounds. This means that they stimulate the sympathetic part of our central nervous system, responsible for the release of adrenaline, which leads to the fight or flight response. Ephedra also affects the cardiovascular system by increasing the blood pressure and causes a relaxation and dilation of the bronchial smooth muscles in asthmatics. Ephedra can shrink the swelling of the delicate mucous membranes which line the respiratory system, thus drying up watery discharges, unstuffing clogged nasal and sinus passages which accompany colds, sinus conditions, and allergies.
In both animal and human studies, mahuang has been shown to accelerate weight loss. It has been shown not only to suppress appetite, but to increase the metabolic activity of the adipose or fat tissue. Therefore, ephedra's weight-reducing effects are most significant in individuals who have a low metabolic rate or a sluggish thyroid gland.
Mahuang is a powerful herb which, when abused, can cause some unwanted side effects. Ephedra should not be taken by those with high blood pressure, nervousness or anxiety, insomnia, cardiac conditions, or pregnancy. Studies indicate that when used in conjunction with other Chinese herbs in a traditional formula, mahuang does not have any of these effects and has remarkable beneficial effects on human health.
We recommend consulting a healthcare practitioner knowledgeable in the use of botanical medicine before using mahuang, so you can be further educated about its totality of effects. And before using herbal preparations with mahuang, check to see if you are sensitive to its effects by starting with the minimal dose and working up to a therapeutic dose. Logically, since ephedra is a stimulant itself, it should be used prudently with other stimulants, beverages, or drugs with stimulant effects. Again, consult with your natural healthcare practitioner.
So, listeners, remember mahuang, the traditional Chinese ephedra, and make sure to include it in your natural medicine chest.
And welcome back once again. 2 more right here on The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. Please join us by visiting our website, naturalnurse.com. You can sign up for our free newsletter by just going to the bottom left-hand corner and putting in only your email, nothing else. And we don't send out too many newsletters, about once a month. This week we are sending out one with a link to naturalnurse.com calendar, which gives you all the up-and-coming events, some of which you may want to join in on. By the way, if any of them are at a time that doesn't suit you, like we have some on Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m., and that's not good for you, maybe you go to church or you like to sleep in, once you register, then you get the archived version for no additional fee that you can visit anytime you want, and you still get the CE units if you are a healthcare professional. Or you can take the class anytime just for your own knowledge, even if you don't have a license that you need to get credits for. So either way, please join us at naturalnurse.com. Look around at our books, our workshops, our lectures, our podcasts. Of course, there's about 1,000 of them posted on our website, and they're free anytime, as well as our articles. And if you go to calendar, you'll see all the upcoming classes. Today, we have as our guest Dr. Ken Druck, and we're talking about his book, Raising an Aging Parent, Guidelines for Families in the Second Half of Life. And I will share, it is a challenge, and it's great to have some of the information that is here in your book, Dr. Druck. What do you mean by caregiving is a two-way street?
Well, you can't caregive somebody unless you're taking care of yourself. Caregiving that is a path to caregivers' burnout and depletion is very short-lived, and it's filled with resentment and frustration and a tone of exhaustion. Caregiving, when somebody is also taking care of themselves, is balanced. You're making sure to fill your own cup. You're replenishing, you're balancing rest and activity. You're replenishing and renewing your own energy, and your life is balanced with other elements. You're not drowning and underwater as a caregiver, because the demands of caregiving can become enormous and all-consuming. So each one of us has to think about, what am I doing? How am I going about things? Am I including my mom or dad's doctor, or priest or rabbi, or am I including my siblings? What professional services exist in our community that could be helping me? There are amazing resources that are developing in so many of our communities that we don't tap into or even know about, that are senior programs. Let's say mom or dad says, hey, I'm lonely ever since your father died or your mother died, or, I'm all alone, I have no social life. Well, what's happening in your area and in your community that might give your parent, your bereaved parent, some social activity so they're not lonely all the time, and so that it's not completely on your shoulders to provide a social life for your mother or father? How do we achieve balance in our own lives while we're caregiving an aging parent, or an aging sibling for that matter? How do we take care of ourselves? So we have to upgrade our own self-care operating systems at this time in life to make sure that all the things that we need are being addressed, so we're not working ourselves into that state of exhaustion.
Well, that's a hard thing to do, however. It is
It's easier
challenging. I
said than
think
done.
one of the
Yeah.
wonderful things of your book is for people to get ready and not wait until they're in that situation. And what do you do when your parent, for instance, my mom who's 90, I suggested going to a place where they have lunch, for older people and all kinds of activity. She said, that's for old people.
Yeah.
She's
Well,
90 now, okay? So what about that resistance? You have a
oh
whole
my
chapter.
goodness.
A big one is the car keys. The car
Well,
keys, that was a fight.
many of us discovered something when our kids were young called tough love. We discovered that there were times in life where you have to give your kids, you say, you have three choices. You can do this, you can clean your room now, you can clean your room after we give them choices, but we let them know that they have to do one of those three things because you are taking responsibility. And if you're assuming responsibility and you're the parent, well, now here you are with a 90-year-old mother or father who's resisting, but who you're helping, and you're a part of the responsibility for their care. Well, in a similar way, and without dismissing them or disrespecting them, sometimes we need to use tough love. I did that. I ended up having to do that with my mother. Mom, here's the deal. Here's the deal. And I would say to my mother, Mom, is there anybody that you can trust in this life more than me to have your back? You have to trust me. I am making some decisions for you or helping you make decisions that are going to benefit you, that are for your care and your safety, your well-being. Please trust me on this. And we have to draw those lines. And we have to be strong, mentally strong with our parents. Otherwise, some of our parents are so either stubborn or resistive or unaware that they don't realize they're running us into the ground. They're not cooperating has a cost. It has a price, and the price is that we are exhausted, that it's detracting from the life of their son or daughter. And their resistance to get help or to go somewhere or to diversify or to get over the fact that it looks old, to stop being so status insecure about
That's a
things
good word.
looking old. Yeah. Well, that status insecurity is a major factor in the aging process. Status insecurity was a term that was developed by a wonderful man named Mike Friedman, Dr. Meyer Friedman. And Mike Friedman wrote a book called Type A Behavior and Your Heart in the 1970s. And Mike Friedman, who was a mentor of mine, used to talk about status insecurity. People who constantly walk around looking over their shoulder to make sure they fit in some way or another. And some people are just so preoccupied and so insecure and so much in self-doubt that they are always checking their status. It runs them. It's the central organizing principle of their lives. So whether you have a difficult case of that or a minor case of it, we can't afford it. We cannot afford as we get older to be saddled down or inhibited or hold ourselves back from the care we need because we're worried about how it looks to others.
Well, and also you do have an entire chapter in here about the car keys. I think that was a big struggle. As a matter of fact, my dad, who, as I said, just passed away, never gave up those car keys. The day he died, he was driving with no glasses, going out late at night and driving all over the place. He never stopped. And luckily, he had taken the car keys away from my mother, and I just went and just took them, right when he passed away, and hid them and told her there's no more car, and that's it. Because that was a big struggle because it gets to be dangerous. Is there a way to bring in more authoritative figures to tell people they cannot drive any longer?
Absolutely. There were things that, my mother started getting very anxious. Here she was, 91, 92 years old, and she was having these mini panic attacks. And after a while, I wondered, is there some kind of natural herbal supplement? Is there something she could take, or something I could help her address the fact that she was becoming more and more anxious? And finally, she every time I would bring it up, she didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to talk about it. And I said, "Would you be willing, next time we go to the doctor for one of your checkups, would you be willing to broach this subject with him?" Now, I called him in advance to tell him that we'd be bringing this up. And I said, "I need your help and support. My mother but she's so against this, and would you support me so that we can experiment and see whether this might be of help to her?" And he said, "Absolutely, yes." And we did, and she agreed, because the authority coming from her doctor was different than her son telling her to do something. Whatever it takes. And sometimes we have a brother or a sister who just has a different tone, has a different tone with our mother or father. They can reach them a lot easier. We butt heads with them, but our brother or sister might be the better person. Or even our cousin, who's a doctor, might be the better person to take that subject up with them, the thing that they're most resisting, whether it's putting the car keys down, whether it's moving out of the family home. A lot of people don't want to do that. "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to one of those damn places. I'm staying right here." And yet the house has become unmanageable. It's a mess. They can't keep up the care of the house. And it's also, the money is needed from selling the house. So oftentimes there are transitions that our aging parents need to make, or that we need to make if we're the aging parent. We need to turn those corners in life, and we need other people to be a little strong with us and emphatic and show us why that will be to our advantage.
So you did mention herbs, as you know, this show is all about natural remedies.
Yes.
So I have lots of things I could talk to about that, which I have my mother on right now. But are there any herbs that come to mind for you that you found helpful for your parents or even for yourself?
Yeah. I think it's such an interesting time to be alive with everything we're discovering about herbs and supplements. And one example is, for example, for a lot of aging parents, the idea of, and I'm not a physician who's prescribing this, but I'm just telling you that I've had positive experience. A lot of people who are experiencing either losing a lot of friends and grieving and going through a lot of those kinds of transitions have found comfort in utilizing SAMe.
That is a good one.
Yep, the SAMe, has been shown in the research on that to have the same properties without the side effects of mild antidepressant. It's a mood stabilizer for a lot of people. So,
well, actually, what we might call a side effect, which is an other effect it has, it's both anti-inflammatory and antidepressant.
Yes.
So if you take it for inflammation, it has the added side effect of, bringing down inflammation and vice versa. So how great is that? And we so often see that with natural therapeutics, that the additional effects actually help something else besides what you took it for, instead of just destroying your digestion or leading to other complications, which is so often the case with pharmaceuticals. So thank you for sharing, Sam E. That's an excellent one. We're going to take another break right here on The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. And when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with our author, Dr. Ken Druck. You can find him at kendruck.com. And we'll be right back with more right here on The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null, the founder of the Progressive Radio Network. Today we have more than 80 producers bringing forth the most progressive and most liberating information, the kind of information you do not regularly hear on any of the mainstream or alternative media. You can help us now. Up to this point, I have virtually supported the Progressive Radio Network, all of its expenses and payroll, myself. But we would like to expand our reach. We'd like to do far more. We'd like to be able to advertise on Facebook and let others know we exist. We are the #1 progressive radio network in the world. In fact, we have programs that are most listened to in all of progressive radio. But we could go a lot further. Our message could reach a lot more people, especially at a time when people are desperate for honest, objective insights on the important topical issues of our day. How can you help? It's simple. Go to prn.fm, go to our main page. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little button, Support Now. And then whatever you can contribute on a monthly basis will make a big difference. It will help get the message out. It will help inform more people. It will give them more choices. This is where you'll hear in the independent candidates and the people looking to challenge the corruption in government and industries. But we need to get our reach out further. So please, whatever you can afford on a monthly basis, and there's some suggestions there, and it'll be automatic. All right? Thank you very much for continuing to help us help you and the rest of the world on these important issues.
It's the Ralph Nader Radio Hour.
Stand up, you've been sitting way too long.
Every Thursday at 2 p.m. on the Progressive Radio Network.
And thank you for joining us today. This is Ellen Kamai, the Natural Nurse. Please visit us at naturalnurse.com. Go to Facebook, The Natural Nurse, to, I don't know what you do there, like us, I guess. Friend us, like us. I'm not so up on all those things, but lots of people must be doing it because we have over 5,000 of those over there on Facebook. And go to naturalnurse.com calendar, and you will be able to see all the events that are coming up, both online, all the CEU credits that you can get for any kind of licensed professional, or just take it for your own knowledge anytime, or work towards your RH. What an RH is a registered herbalist, and we do mentor people through that process with the American Herbalist Guild. I am on the council of the American Herbalist Guild. And thank you so much for listening today to The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. Our guest, Dr. Ken Druck, is here with us discussing his book, Raising an Aging Parent, and he has lots of other information on his website. And that's a good way to find him, kendruck.com. What other kind of information do you have there, Dr. Ken?
Well, you know what? I tried to think of what every possible conversation that we can have as a family in the second half of life, whether it's about legal issues that we need to get settled, or financial issues, or relationship issues. You know, what are the conversations that we need to have? You know, how many families wait until the last minute, until there's a life-threatening situation, before they express the full measure of their love, before they really take steps to leave a legacy of love, and steps in any direction to leave a legacy of love. And I outline what it means to really leave a legacy of love, what it means to help and support an aging parent in putting their house in order in every possible way, so that we're not in a crisis moment of having to do these things. We're being proactive. We're taking care of these things in advance. And also the health side of it. You know what? You know, I learn something every time I've spoken with you about, you know, health, about how we can take care of our health. What conversations would a responsible, loving, caring adult child be having with their parents about what supplements, what herbs, what they're putting in their system, how they're helping their system stay robust and healthy and protecting themselves from some of the things that happen as we get older, as our immune systems become weaker. How do we keep them strong? So, there's so many ways we can be purposefully relevant and involved and engaged in our parents' lives, and I tried to cover all of them. But I love what you're doing. You add a whole other element, which is, as our parents get older, or if we're the parent getting older, what do we need to know? What are we learning? How could we take advantage of what we're discovering, what we're learning, and new things that are available to keep us healthy and well?
That's true. And a lot of times it's old things like healthy eating, because as people age, and I noticed that with my parents, my mother used to be quite a good cook, and she would cook a full and complete meal, vegetables and some kind of protein. Now, as her hands didn't work as well, and especially since my dad has passed, she doesn't bother doing that. It'll be just kind of like fast food warm-up stuff, which is all she can handle. And I had to go in and discuss with her aide about making sure she's still eating, meals, which is very difficult because she said she's too depressed to eat. So everything becomes more of a challenge. That's really true.
Yeah. So how do we do that? My partner's dad he's dealing with a very difficult health challenge. And where do we go in our communities to find out, how people, where the antioxidants are, where we can get food in our communities? She discovered, kind of a Meals on Wheels service for families that are, going through a health crisis and need food delivered, and some of that is actually covered in his Medicare. So, there's so much for all of us to learn, and to thank goodness we have Google, and we have places that have all this information organized for us in books and resource, numbers that we can call to find out what resources exist in our own communities to help us.
Yes, and I love your, I guess it's kind of like a self-care master plan and very easy keys that you have in your book. And I really suggest people do learn about this ahead of time, because then you find yourself in the sandwich generation and not knowing which way to turn. Before we go off, and we are getting to the end of our show, but what do you mean by the sandwich generation?
Well, sandwich generation is my daughter and her husband, and they have young kids, but they also have me and her mother, and so there is care on both sides. They are in the middle of the sandwich. You have kids that need your caregiving, and you have parents who are getting a little older, and you're finding yourself taking care of them. Sometimes all of a sudden, if something goes wrong, I had a knee replaced last year. My daughter was called into action to help. Suddenly she saw her father as vulnerable for the first time, maybe in her life. And, boy, I need to help Dad and spend time with Dad. He's not getting around. He's going to be going through this rehab process. So I think when somebody's in that sandwich generation, it's absolutely necessary to sit down and say, I am going to take care of myself. I'm not going to be squeezed into exhaustion by these increasing needs. I can't be a type E, everything to everybody else, and neglect myself. I've got to take care of myself, and here's how I'm going to do it. And write it down, make a commitment to stay true to it, and enjoy the benefits of that kind of balance.
Well, that's definitely excellent, excellent advice. And thank you so much for putting it all together in your book, Raising an Aging Parent. And I really do suggest that people look into that because, it sneaks up on you, especially if you have parents who are older who are actually taking care of themselves. And what exactly are you going to do when suddenly one cannot? And that's that happens before, just suddenly, like you said. So getting a copy of your book, Raising an Aging Parent, or visiting your website, kendruck.com, would be a good idea. So thank you so much for being our guest today, right here on The Natural Nurse and Dr. Z. Do you have any parting comment, Dr. Druck?
Ellen, I just want to acknowledge you for the work you do so quietly, in throughout everywhere. Every heart you touch, every life you touch, and what an honor and a pleasure it is to work with you and to be on your show.
Well, thank you also, and thank you, listeners, to tuning in once again right here on The Natural Nurse and Z. On behalf of myself and my co-host, Dr. Eugene Zamprone, we're hoping that you stay healthy.